Professor Jacob has the floor.
So I was going to start with 2014.
Now,
but
what is this about, first off?
Yes.
Okay.
What are we doing here today, Jacob?
So I'm going to present to you a little bit of we're not going to discuss Trump's phone call very much. It will be mentioned. Watch out for it. That is its own thing. Okay. This is more about
Let him give it.
what happened in Ukraine between Biden's son Hunter, the DNC, a chalupa, and it'll make more sense. Anyway. So this is the story in Ukraine. This is the reason that Trump said in the phone call that he did. Yeah.
So this is like what led up to like why there was an impeachment going on?
Yes, this is one of the factors.
Okay.
Okay. So back in 2012, we all know President Obama was reelected.
Correct.
Right? In 2014, we have Obama, we have Joe Biden as our VP. In 2014, Ukraine's government is destabilized, and crazy stuff happens. The government essentially shuts down, and then they're trying to get their shit together, and we say, hey, we've got this great idea. We've got this whole team of people that we're going to give you, and they're going to help you guys get your things together. The head of that team was Mr. Biden himself. Okay.
Joe.
Big Joe. Okay. So in 2014,
Big Joe.
Big Joe.
Joe says, "I'm going to go help out in Ukraine." He's our front man. Okay. Well, just coincidentally, he meets up with a friend of his. His name escapes me currently, but he meets up with a friend, and they just talk for a couple hours at the White House. And then I think it's about 3 or 4 days later, all of a sudden, Joe's pal that he invited over, and Joe's son Hunter
Biden 2.
is both the guy that Biden had in his house and he met with, and Joe's son Hunter are both made board members of not private bank, of Burisma.
So Biden himself was also made.
No, just Biden's the dude he talked to, and Hunter.
Okay.
So and there were some other people on the board, but all of a sudden Hunter is board of Burisma, which is a natural gas company over in Ukraine. He has no previous experience with the natural gas or that market or anything like that. He was a lawyer correct, Hunter. Hunter was a lawyer until a few months before when this happened. He was a lawyer, and then he was fired because he tested positive for cocaine.
No way.
Oh shit.
Yes, that is, yeah. So he tests positive for cocaine. He's fired. A few months after that, Joe happens to be made our front man in Ukraine, and then all of a sudden, Hunter's business starts to materialize after Dad gets his new job. So Hunter is in Ukraine now, working with them. He's making $1 million a month off of that. Okay. And so, funny thing about this company and also this other random company, Private Bank. I think I'm pretty sure it's the biggest bank in Ukraine, or one of the bigger banks in Ukraine. Both.
It does.
Yes, it does because it's foreign.
Oh. That is that.
So you did
Yes,
spell it.
that is in fact how it is spelled. Yes. So both of them are owned by this guy. Okay?
Nasty ass?
Yes, Nasty Ass. I don't remember his name. I should have looked it up. So Nasty Ass owns both this company and this company. Now, part of the deal...
Dude, come on. You always are supposed to turn your phone off during the lecture.
Get him!
throw the book at you. So anyway, so Mr. Nasty Ass, and we'll put up his name. We'll put up his name and maybe his picture too.
Okay.
So Nasty Ass owns Private Bank and Burisma. Now this dude is really bad. We don't like him very much. At least we didn't. He couldn't get visas to America. He couldn't come to America. We didn't like him that much, okay? And so part of this new deal that we made with Ukraine in 2014 was we said, hey, we're going to give you all of these things. We're going to give you, look at me. See, now it's my fault.
Oh, shit. Get yourself.
So
I'm professional.
in 2014, okay, we say to Ukraine, we say, hey, we're going to give you all these people to help you fix your stuff. We're going to give you lots of money, $1.8 billion in total. And that's taxpayer money. That's the government saying, hey, look, here's all of this. Here you go. Okay? So we decide we're going to put it in private bank. Don't know why. Mr. Joe was our dude.
So question, because I don't know how these things typically work. So like when we give money to another country, what does the typical transaction look like? Is that
That's foreign policy,
Yeah.
and that's pretty much always decided by the executive branch. So it depends on who's in office sometimes. As far that's why we've had wildly different approaches from Obama and President Trump.
But why is it so weird initially that they put that money in private bank?
Because we know that this guy is bad, and we know that he owns this company. We won't let him come to America. Joe is our guy who makes most of the decisions. We put that money in 1.8 with a B billion dollars go into private bank, and then all of a sudden it vanishes. Okay, so we lose it broke. So we lose that $1.8 billion gone, just like that. We give that to them. We put it in private bank. It's gone. All of a sudden, right? Hunter is in charge of Burisma, and Mr. Nasty Ass can come to America now. He can get visas. He can come to America. Wow, good for him. Okay, so that is part of it. That's part of the story. That is part of the reason that we withheld aid from Ukraine, but also a few other countries. We withheld aid from back in July. This is what he was asking about. So Burisma, we know that we gave this stuff to Nasty Ass. He takes the money. Okay, Hunter's in charge of Burisma now. Okay, and then there's a prosecutor who is in charge, part of this team, part of this kind of coalition that we created. There was a gentleman, the prosecutor, who was in charge of fighting corruption. So he said, hey, this isn't cool. This doesn't look right. He said, something is weird here. So they start to investigate Burisma.
And this is back in 2014 still.
I think this is more 2016 now.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is I believe this is a little bit later, 2015, 2016, and we can put dates. We can put dates on there.
Vice.
Yeah, no, they were the vice president at that point. Biden was the vice president.
This was at the end of his.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So anyway. The prosecutor in Ukraine is investigating Burisma, saying something's not right here. There were some people that didn't like him, and there were also people on his team that said some people didn't like him, but he was going to stay there unless outside pressures forced him out. Joe Biden has been seen on video saying, yeah, we kicked him out. Yeah, we got him out. We kicked him out. And
Nasty Ass out?
No. They kicked the prosecutor in Ukraine. So this is a new guy. Prosecutor.
Yeah, I have a hard time following along if it's not on the board.
Yeah. So the prosecutor we'll call him the prosecutor of corruption. He does have a fancy name, but that's his job.
That sounds like a badass nickname, like for
A wrestler?
something like that. Yeah.
The prosecutor of corruption. So the prosecutor of corruption, his job is to prosecute corruption, right? So he looks into Burisma. Joe Biden says, "Hey, kick him out," and they do it.
Shit.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
he's fired.
So he just literally just goes to the Ukraine government and is like,
Yes,
hey,
I mean,
this guy's
yeah,
shitty.
and this is the part where this is where it gets really shady, and they're like, "Hey, like this is a conspiracy theory, but we have video of Joe Biden talking about this. It's only a sentence or two. He's just saying, yeah, we got him out. That's pretty much what he said. I mean, I think he was a little bit happier about it. I mean, if you watch the video, it's almost it's a little gloaty. But anyway, so the prosecutor's fired who investigates Burisma, and they're good. So this is just one part of, this is the reason, this is that part. If you read the transcript goes like this, and I encourage all of you to read it. It's only like 3 or 4 pages. You can read it in 10 or 15 minutes. The transcript essentially it goes, "Hi, President of Ukraine, President Zelensky. Congratulations on winning your election." Zelensky says, "Thank you." And then they talk a little bit about javelins. And President Zelensky says, "Hey, we still getting those javelins?" And that's part of that military aid that we were going to send to Ukraine, right? Some money, some weapons, things like that. Javelins are just fancy missiles. Big, expensive, cool missiles. But anyway, and so Zelensky says, "Hey, how about those javelins?" And President Trump says, "Yeah, for sure, sounds great. By the way, there's something I want you to look into." He says, "There's something about the Bidens and the prosecutor over there." He says, "It doesn't seem like they treated him very fair. Just can you look into that, please?" And the president of Ukraine's like, "Yeah, for sure, we will do that. Sounds great." And I believe there was one other subject that I can't recall that they discuss in there. But I mean, it's business. And it's a polite conversation. And then at the end, President Trump and Zelensky, they say, "Hey, let's get together, let's do this." And they're like, let's meet here. There was a meeting scheduled to happen in like the following month or two. President Trump did not go to that meeting because we had hurricanes. We had the big hurricanes that were hitting us in that month. But Pence went instead. He went and met with, and Zelensky said, he's like, "I felt no pressure." I mean, how do you have a quid pro quo if the dude doesn't know that he's being threatened? You know what I mean? Hold on, just a second. In just a moment. Hold that thought. Additionally, we didn't just withhold aid from Ukraine. We also withheld aid from a few other countries. But if President Trump were to say, "I want them to investigate," just a second. Sorry. Just in just a minute, I promise. So President Trump said, "We're going to withhold aid from a few other countries, but if you were to say that we're withholding aid from Ukraine because of corruption, would this not, this is what we're talking about. This is the event that he's talking about in that one little thing. But we still sent the javelins over. I mean, we still gave them the weapons, and the aid did come. It was delayed a few months, but we sent it over there. So anyway, sorry, that's it. Yeah.
So to be devil's advocate.
Yeah, what's up?
I want to be devil's advocate here.
Absolutely.
Why would Trump not go just because of hurricanes? Because I'm sure that he could still probably get there.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering that too. So
I mean, don't you think that would? I mean, that's a personal decision, and he still sent the vice president. I mean, what's the vice president going to do? Hop over there and say, "The president's mad at you." That's why we had stuff going on here.
Okay.
I mean,
to be devil's advocate.
I mean, don't you think it would be kind of weird if we have people dying in our country and our president's flying halfway across the world to be like, "Hey, how you doing? What's up? Let's have a cup of tea."
Yeah.
No, I understand where you're coming from. Just to be devil's advocate.
What's up?
Okay, I think I can't remember if you explained this before or not. This may have been the point where we decided to do this. Why were we withholding Aid?
Yeah.
Is
So
it because of that? Was that Trump's initial decision to withhold aid from them because of this?
No. That's what I'm saying. It was aid gets withheld all the time for various reasons. We withheld aid from a few other countries. I don't have a list. There is one though somewhere. In any case, Ukraine was one of those countries, but it was we delayed it a little bit. We sent it over. Because people were like, "Hey, Trump withheld this stuff," and then I think they released the aid like 2 days after that, which was interesting. So there's something to be considered there. But I mean, we sent over javelins. They didn't. I mean, they said the Ukrainian government's like, we thought they were nice. I don't know. We were asked about the javelins. We got the javelins. And so that's one part of it. That's the.
For a minute you were talking about like a minute ago you said something about like Biden meeting with him being like you said he wasn't like, oh, the president's mad at you. So what?
Not Biden. Pence.
Or Pence. That's what I meant. That's what I meant.
Pence meeting with.
Pence met with him and you were just joking like, oh, the president's mad at you.
Yeah.
So Trump's not mad.
No.
Where's that coming from?
No, nowhere. That's what I'm saying. It was a nice conversation. Everybody who is.
Is that some of the things that are being said? Is that like Trump like met with him to like pressure him? Or
nobody's really saying that.
Like,
nobody's saying that.
Okay.
Yeah. No. That's. I mean, that's what they're like. Trump wasn't mad at him. He had stuff to do here. He sent Mike in his place. You know. I mean, that's.
Oh, just because he didn't go, they're assuming he was mad at him.
Right.
Oh, okay.
But we sent Pence.
Yes. Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. But so not everybody will tell you that. They'll tell you Trump didn't meet with him after this thing happened, but he sent Pence. I mean, like we still met with him.
Informal Lectures.
Yeah. So there's that. Also, I told you about a chalupa, Alexandra Chalupa.
Oh, it's a person.
Yes. Yeah. No, her last name is Chalupa.
Holy fuck!
I did not see that coming.
No, neither did I.
What a twist!
Woo.
What a
Holy
twist!
shit!
Yes. So Alexandra
What's in the
Chalupa.
box?
What a twist!
Let's see here. If you just Google.
It's not a naked chicken chalupa. It's fucking Alex Chalupa? What is it?
Alexandra.
Alexandra Chalupa.
It's a lady.
Oh, ew. Yikes.
Okay.
Oh,
Dude, she looks like a potato. She looks like a literal sack of potatoes.
So if you just Google Chalupa DNC, because she worked for the DNC, the first thing that comes up is her picture, and then Alexandra Chalupa is an American who was co-chair of the Democratic National Committee's Ethnic Council. So she was on a big part of the DNC. She was a big wig up there. She is also the founder of the political consulting firm Chalupa and Associates LLC. Chalupa is also a pro-Ukrainian activist. Interesting. Okay. Let's see.
you can't keep saying that without me just kind of cracking up.
I know.
Chalupa and friends.
And then if you do a little bit more digging, you find Alexandra Chalupa is a Ukrainian American operative who is consulting for the Democratic National Committee. Chalupa met with top officials in the Ukrainian embassy in Washington, D.C. in an effort to expose ties between Paul Manafort and Russia. So Paul Manafort, I honestly don't remember. I think he was put in jail. I think they put him in jail for colluding with Russia. Okay, so Chalupa was part of this awesome team that they put together.
Who exactly? The DNC?
Chalupa.
No, remember when we sent Biden over with this
Yeah.
cool team of people? He was not the only one. There were other people, but Alexandra Chalupa was kind of on the lower down part of that, right? The deal with Alexandra Chalupa is that she worked for the DNC. So now all of a sudden we have a DNC operative in Ukraine in 2014, before the 2016 election. Okay?
Why? Okay, can you explain why that's significant?
Because a lot of people say, and well, I mean, I think there are pictures. We'll have to put them up, but since I'm blanking, her orders were to dig up dirt on Trump. So
Before
in 2014, right? And so the funny thing, right? I mean, we had this whole thing about Russia collusion, right? For 3 years, we had that, right?
Right.
They came out. What's his name? The dude, the guy who made the presentation and gave it out.
Oh yeah, I'm blanking on his name right now too.
Yeah, but you know who I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
So, yeah, I know, me too. Somebody look it up while I'm talking.
I'm on it.
So anyway, he comes out and he says, "Look, we did all this research. We did all this research, and there wasn't anything, right? And meanwhile, we have all of this stuff that's going on, and nobody knows anything about it. And if you talk about it, you're called a conspiracy theorist. There are pictures, there are videos of people talking about this. There's paperwork, and we're gonna have Mueller. Thank you. Thank you.
Report?
Yeah, the Mueller report.
Mueller report.
Right.
Mueller report.
Which was supposed to be the end all be all, right? And then he did it, and everybody was like, "You
Didn't really hear much about it afterwards.
you didn't find anything? Like, it's because there was nothing there.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything there."
Okay, I feel like I saw something a little bit afterwards saying like Mueller was like reinvestigating again or some shit.
Yeah, I feel like I heard about
I
that
feel like
too.
I heard something, like I saw some stuff about like I feel like, or something like he even wasn't like happy with
Yeah.
like how, like, I don't know, is that a thing, or is, like, I feel like that was something
I haven't heard that. Honestly, I just really, really have a hard time believing any media at this point, to be honest with you, because all of this exists and nobody's talked about it. And it's a little weird. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, if you assume that half of what I'm saying is true and maybe the other half comes out of my butt, there's still a lot there. Okay? And I encourage you all to do your own research. This is all here, I promise. Just look for it.
What if you're the one and only person that's actually put this together, and now we're just going to be posting on YouTube?
I promise I'm not, because people think he's a crackpot. He can be. Go watch Glenn Beck's presentation on this. It's a lot. It's 2 hours long. He uses 3 chalkboards. It's a great video. There's some really good investigative work there. They took a long time to put it together, and he's also just a really good orator. I implore you to check it out.
Let's keep in mind, not everybody in this room has the same ideas on politics. Let's just keep that in mind. This is not a bunch of Republicans just coming up with kooky ideas.
I mean, it's all there though, and we can provide a lot of it.
Explaining his opinion.
That's true. Yeah,
Yes.
one humble opinion.
This is
Well,
not.
there's-
Well,
everybody in the room.
started out as okay.
At
hold
least
on.
he didn't say Alex Jones was a good source. Like,
At this point, it is my opinion. This is all true though. Look it up.
Let's hope we don't.
And we're gonna provide.
Yeah,
we'll provide a lot of it here. We can
no
provide.
anti-Semites.
Yes.
Coming
Well,
up.
we'll just say that like this started out of a lack of understanding of this whole impeachment thing from my end and kind of Ian's end.
I've done a lot of research. So.
And he's done a lot of research. So
In his own way,
it's
from his own sources that may have their own opinions.
so
I did not know we were gonna be looking at the camera at all.
neither did I. And Elliot's not wearing a flannel this time, so don't attack him for it.
Or a beanie.
Or a beanie.
no, I'm Michael. Elliot's got the glasses.
All right, let's get that out of the way
Yes.
before we get
Yes.
shit.
Okay.
What should we? Like,
Well,
Yeah, you were talking about Chalupa.
yeah, Chalupa. I mean, that's pretty much her story, right? So she was a she was a DNC operative, and she was working really closely with Ukraine before the 2016 election. And so that's part of the thing. I mean, you know, we accuse Trump of colluding with Russia. We investigated for 3 years, no collusion.
So what kind of dirt was Chalupa trying to get on Trump in
Well,
2014?
they tried, and I mean, don't.
Hey, what do you know? It's 3 a.m. And while we're working on this video, we realized that we fucked up. Of course, always technical difficulties. So we're just going to skip to the next bit.
about grabbing pussy or some shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just the smallest thing.
And see, right, and that's what I'm saying, and that's it, right? It's all of those small like things that just magically resurface.
Was the grabbing by the pussy thing like way
Yeah, that
long
was
ago?
like that was off of Extra. Like when he was, big, because before that he
On
was
The
like all big
Apprentice.
movie star
Yeah.
and all shit.
Oh really?
So, like,
I thought I've never actually seen the video.
Yeah, they're
They're
like-
I always thought it was something like
all there is
more
they have
recent.
they have the lapels on, and they're inside of like the dressing van or not the van, the bus or whatever, and it's just him in a conversation between like whatever the host of Extra or whatever.
Making a bad joke.
Yeah, just making a bad joke.
Yeah.
And so,
I knew like the context of it, but I didn't realize.
Yeah, but it was
that
so
long ago.
old and it was weird. Like that just came out of nowhere. Like how come we couldn't have just dug this up like a couple like months ago? Like this was like right.
And that happens all the time on both sides, where things just resurface and
it's
people are like, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, but I feel really strongly towards this because I really can't find an example recently of anything like this that's going on.
So there is no
on the RNC.
So there's like no understanding of why she went to was trying to get dirt from Ukraine on her.
Why was a DNC operative in Ukraine? She wasn't employed by the government. She was employed by the DNC. Why was she working in Ukraine?
Okay. Interesting.
There's more to that. I am ignorant in it. This is part of the story. I mean, this is like this much of it.
Why is none of this coming up during the impeachment?
That's a great question, Ian. That's a phenomenal question. And part of it is the reason, if you watch the news for 30 minutes, you will hear people say probably at least 2 or 3 times, especially if they have like Republican senators on the show, they're going to say, especially in this past week, they've said, if we end up calling for more witnesses, we're calling for Hunter Biden. He's going to be on the stand. We're calling him up there because of this. They talk about Hunter a lot right now. Okay. This is why.
So this is the entire reason why Trump made that. Well, what Trump wanted them.
That's what they want. Yeah. This is the thing that he asked about. This is not what the whole phone call is about. Read the transcript.
I don't even know what this phone call is. Is this new?
No, that was the phone call that started this whole.
We'll fill you in.
Yeah.
That's okay. So he makes.
See, we're all ignorant. We're all just ignorant.
Well, I just knew that, like, I just, because you guys came down, he's explaining us the impeachment to us, and I'm like, what is there to explain about impeachment? Like, it's just people vote to get the president kicked out or someone out. And, no, I didn't know it yet.
And we can talk about the Senate and their we can talk about the Senate and their process here in a bit, because I've learned a lot about how Congress works, and it's really interesting. In any case. Let me think. Okay, so we talked about Chalupa. That's pretty much her story. Okay. I mean, she was a DNC operative. Her job was to dig up dirt. I mean, but like, that's collusion.
Well, I mean, I'm not like, oh, that's it. Like
that's like that. I mean, is that not? That's collusion, right? Yeah. Asking and having somebody to go to another country to dig up dirt on your political rival, which is what they claim he was trying to do with Joe Biden.
Right.
But at the same
Which
time...
is the reason this whole trial started in the first place.
So the question is, here's the number one question right now for impeachment. If Trump abused his power, or if he... What was the second one?
Obstruction. Yeah,
or if he obstructed justice. Okay, so we'll talk about that one in a second. But if he abused his power, which was the big one, okay... then he would have had to be doing this. He would have had to ask him to dig up dirt, look into this situation, only to get dirt on Biden. Did it cross his mind that he was on the other side of the, proverbial political fence, right? Yeah, I'm sure he knew that. Okay. At the same time, he also knew this was going on because he was talking specifically about the prosecutor that was investigating Burisma. He knew that this happened.
Sorry, go ahead.
So then the question becomes, okay, so someone you don't like does something bad. And honestly, I'm not sure that Trump cares all that much about Biden. He strikes me as a guy who, if he doesn't like you, he's going to be like, you know what, you're a dick, and then he's going to move on and do his own thing. That's the kind of guy he strikes me as. Just saying. That's my opinion. Anyway, can you not investigate your political opponent if they're committing crimes?
See, yeah, that's why.
If they are actively working to corrupt and benefit from another country's vulnerability.
So what is their defense in all of this?
hunters.
Well, this isn't even being brought up, right? Like,
Yeah, you're not allowed. They didn't. They caught. So back to the Senate. So now we're in impeachment land. Okay, which by the way, I don't know if you know, they just voted a few hours ago that they're not going to call more witnesses.
Yeah.
They got a 51 to 49 vote to not call for more witnesses.
You're gonna have to explain that to me more later.
Sure. So, well, I guess we'll start at the beginning. So, the process of impeachment is thus. The House of Representatives needs a majority. They need a simple majority to vote to impeach the president. The Democrats control the House right now. They have a majority by a few. So, essentially, all that is needed is for impeachment, and this happened a bit with Bill Clinton, because we tried to impeach Bill Clinton too.
Right.
Because he was he was hanging his willy out in the White House, among other things, right? That was a mostly partisan, it was pretty partisan, vote to impeach, right? I mean, the Republicans that he was on the other side, he was hanging his willy out around the White House, are like, we're going to impeach this dude, right?
Yeah.
It was pretty partisan. The founders warned against a partisan impeachment. It should only be done as a last resort, and especially not this close to an election. We have an election this year, 9 months away, right? The people should just vote him out of office if they... And a lot of people still like the president. It is a pretty purely partisan attempt to remove the president and nullify the 2016 election. Okay. The House votes to impeach. Then they have to draft articles of impeachment. They can also call witnesses, which they did. They called witnesses. They called 17 witnesses in the House, like in the basement of the Capitol alone, where Trump and his people could not present witnesses. Okay. And then they rushed it through. Remember, it happened really fast. They're like, we're going to impeach him, and then all of a sudden we had articles of impeachment. Abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. Okay. So they said, we've got such a strong case. They said, we've got a really strong case. We've got all of this evidence, all of these witnesses. And then they go to the Senate and they say, hey, we're not going to give the articles of impeachment to you. And the reason is you're not going to give it a fair chance. You're not going to give it a fair trial. The Senate is a majority Republican, correct. And so, Nancy...
It's such a childish thing when you hear all about it. Like...
I really is though.
So, I mean, the system's broken, man. It's broken. Anyway.
It's hella broken.
Depending on your yes and no depends how much you're going to be making that week. So
right, yeah.
It's fucking money.
Yeah.
So, Nancy Pelosi says, no, we're not going to give the articles to you. And Mitch McConnell says, if you don't give the articles to us within a month, we're going to change the law so that we can just vote to acquit him, because you're going to hold... I mean... It's such an important thing. We have to get these articles of impeachment over to the Senate. We've got to draft them. We've got to move everything fast, because this is imminent. The danger is imminent. He is going to hurt our country. And so they do all of this. And then they hold the articles of impeachment for about a month.
So what does them holding... I mean, they can't accomplish anything if they're just holding it.
Yeah.
Right?
Right?
So, like, what is the plan
Everybody was like, why is Nancy Pelosi doing this? It kind of seemed like a strategy move. Nobody knew what her strategy was. I don't think Nancy knew what her strategy was. I think she was just doing something because everybody was saying already, they're like, these aren't high crimes or misdemeanors, which is what impeachment is for. You know, I mean, if you ask them what they did, they'll say, oh, it's this and this, it's obstruction of justice and this. And if you say, what exactly does that mean? Can you tell me exactly? And they'll be like, they'll give you a long-winded, like 10-minute explanation of it. You know, like get the idea of what these things are, not actually legally what those things are, because they're not high crimes or misdemeanors. They're not like real charges. In any case. So Mitch McConnell says, if you don't give them to us, we're going to vote to acquit anyway without your articles. And then they come in and they say, okay, we're going to give them to you. Then they do that walk that they did. You guys see the walk? They all like, the impeachment managers walked somberly over to the Senate. You guys didn't watch that?
No.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. So when you impeach a president, you have the House managers. They like walk somberly. They do this like ritual walk down to the Senate to deliver the articles of impeachment. It happened. You should, yeah.
What?
Yeah. So that's a thing. Anyway.
Okay, so I just looked it up real quick.
Yeah.
Obstruction of justice. This is off of legaldictionary.net.
Okay.
Just to say. Obstruction of justice occurs when a person offers false information or otherwise takes some action that frustrates an investigation or other legal process. An example of an obstruction of justice would be a person lying to the court and as a result being handed a harsher sentence as a punishment. What? Doesn't seem right.
So, I mean, that's essentially what they're saying. Trump didn't give us the things that we wanted. He didn't give us documents. That's always what they say. He didn't give us documents.
The documents is in regards to the phone call.
Right, but as soon as they made claim, as soon as there was a whistleblower complaint, which is, remember what all of this started about. You guys remember hearing about the whistleblower?
Is there multiple though?
Kind of.
Maybe, but they don't say that. They say like it's one. I'm pretty sure it's one person. Anyway, so the whistleblower said, "Hey, this phone conversation happened, and I think Trump was doing this thing, right?" And so Trump said, "Here's the transcript. It was okay." And then we heard reports that the whistleblower wasn't even actually in the room when the phone call happened. So it was just hearsay whatever on the staff, and then somebody was like, oh. So Trump releases the record. So he gives that to them. They call 17 witnesses in the House, and then they bring the articles of impeachment over to the Senate. The Senate
Witnesses to his obstruction of justice.
That's the point. Like, there isn't anything there.
Now,
they had 17 people talking. What do they have? I mean, if you watch the news, who do they quote saying that Trump did all of these things? Do you remember this person's testimony? Do you remember how strong it was? They don't do that. They don't do that because they had 17 witnesses with themselves, right? And they couldn't find anything.
So
and then
like,
they held.
What was the point of what did the witnesses say? Like what was their witness exactly?
It was probably jail staffers, honestly, or jail staffers. I work too much in the House Center. White House staffers. But I mean, there's nothing, I mean, we don't have videos of them saying anything interesting. They don't quote them, they called 17 people, and what did they have them talk about? Nothing, because there isn't anything there. They said, we have such a strong case, and then they decided to hold the articles of impeachment for 3 weeks because they probably knew they didn't really have that much.
So they just called 17 witnesses.
I'm sure they were I'm sure that they were trying their hardest to find something.
So they just called 17 witnesses of people like who worked in the White House. That
or people that knew the president.
They're just like, talk.
Yeah.
And they were like,
Now, if they can't use the whistleblower as a witness, right? Because of
they really don't want you to, but
because of
I mean the Senate, if the Senate worked hard enough, they probably could have gotten him in there. But they're like, we have to protect the identity of the whistleblower. For no particular reason.
That's my thing with them not.
Right, you can't even track back to the original source of the claim because they don't want you to.
Because if somebody investigates,
that's the reason they didn't read that question. Was it yesterday?
Yeah.
Is because he wrote the dude's name on a card and he was like, I'm not gonna read this because it has a whistleblower's name on it. Schiff is like, we have to defend. He said, I mean, every time somebody talks about the whistleblower, he's like, we have to defend the whistleblower's identity. We have to, even though we know that the whistleblower was communicating with Schiff and his staff around that time directly with them. We know that happened, but we're not allowed to talk to him or talk about who he is.
Because that's like when I was talking to you about witnesses earlier and how like I believe that there should be witnesses because this is basically
and I agree.
An investigation.
And I almost think that shutting down the witnesses was a mistake. Here's the thing though, I mean the Senate didn't want to be bogged down for the next few months doing the House's homework. They called 17 witnesses. They said we have a great case, and then they weirdly held up articles of impeachment for some reason. Maybe they were trying to gather more evidence, and then when pressed, they gave the articles. They show up in court, and the first day they're like, "We need more evidence. We don't have enough to present our case in court." All the lawyers there were saying, if you had done this in a courtroom, they would have kicked you out, and you would have been fired. for not
Yeah.
showing up ready to go,
Right.
especially after claiming that you had such a strong case. And so then they want to bog the Senate down for the next few months, trying to gather things that they couldn't gather. I mean, they rushed it through because, again, because they said it was so important, and they said they had all of this evidence, and then they show up to court and they say, can you guys find more people to agree with us?
Huh.
I mean,
What?
it's ridiculous, isn't it? It sounds dumb. Like, it just sounds stupid. And I mean, they're good speak. Adam Schiff is actually a better speaker than I had thought he was. I mean, I'd see him on the news, and he looks. Adam Schiff is one of the House. He's one of the House managers for impeachment. And he was part of the Trump colluded. He was a colluder. He was all over the news talking about collusion. He almost coined the term, right? And then there was nothing there. And then all of a sudden, now he's part of this impeachment stuff. And he worked with the whistleblower to make the complaint. But we can't, again, talk about who the whistleblower is. Do you see how it's just kind of just not right? All of this?
Well, it seems like everything's just meandering into a never-ending circle. Nothing is going anywhere.
Right.
You can't really bring up the whistleblower, so therefore it's hard to really make a case against him. But at the same time, I don't even know. It's just like this big back and forth, it seems like. It's just never ending and can't come to a conclusive conclusion.
A conclusive conclusion.
Yes.
Indeed.
Okay. So, they got rid of the 17 witnesses? Is that what you said now?
No, they didn't get rid of them. The House had them. They spoke. They gave their testimony, all 17 of them. I haven't seen anything interesting from it. Nobody in the DNC or Nancy Pelosi or anybody's talked about it. And also, Trump is the first president that's ever been denied access to witnesses while in the House because they held closed-door meetings to have those people speak. And then, like I said, they go to the Senate and they're like, we need more witnesses.
Why can't he have witnesses?
Because the House didn't want them to. No, every other president who's been impeached, which there's only been 2 other ones. Trump is the third.
Isn't that kind of legally
They're not. It's not court. It's different. The House is different. Senate is more like a court. You really only need a majority in the House to impeach a president. So, and this was a purely partisan split. I think both times. I think today it was a partisan split too.
I'm pretty sure it was today.
49 Democrat, 51 Republicans, and then and it was right down party lines to vote for articles of impeachment in the House. And the fathers warned against that. They said if you have a purely partisan impeachment, this is not something you need to be messing with, because it's only going to stir up people.
So, to conclude all of this, tell us where we are as of this moment.
Okay, so tonight we were talking about witnesses. The past week, the House managers, Adam Schiff and others, have pleaded and tried to encourage the senators to consider more witnesses. He says, they just keep talking. They said, we need more witnesses. He can't be above the law. It's dangerous. I would love for somebody to count how many times Adam Schiff has said dangerous in the past week. It's got to be in the hundreds easily. I mean, anyway, so I was on the fence as for if I wanted, but that's not important. So anyway, they voted tonight as far as to whether or not we should have more witnesses, and they said no. It was 51 Republican, 49 Democrat. They said we're not going to have any more witnesses. You guys had 17 of them. You said you had a strong case. You filibustered and just held back the things. Then you give them to us and ask us to do your homework for you. So essentially they said, where's the evidence? Give it to us. You don't have it? Okay. I mean, what are you supposed to do at that point? I mean, our system is guilty until proven innocent. If there's no proof,
right.
I mean, that's what it is. So we had the vote tonight. I think the last senator, because they didn't have the votes yesterday, and then I think today it was a lady from, I don't remember what state she's from, but she said She said, honestly, Congress has failed, but this is how I'm casting my vote, and we're not going to have any more things. She says, this Congress has failed in this trial. Like we didn't do a good job, but this is how I feel I should vote, and no more witnesses.
So
what happens now?
Yeah.
Right. So the Senate's kind of like, what do we do now? Because now they have to vote. They have to vote to acquit. And so I mean, he's going to get acquitted with the votes that they have right now. They're negotiating on how they want to do it the next day or two. I'm not sure when they're gonna vote to acquit, but I mean, I could tell you pretty much without a shadow of a doubt they're gonna vote to acquit him, which I mean I think is the right decision. I mean we don't, it's a long story. It's got a lot of twists and turns and a lot of people involved. But do you see? And there's like it's like kind of like put on my tinfoil hat, But the deep state. Have you heard of that? The deep state.
I've heard the term.
Yes. It's a funny term for essentially the belief that all of these people in the upper branches of all of this stuff are always working together and scheming and trying to do something, and I mean it changes history, and the deep state has existed for.
Right.
Almost 100 years now. I mean, probably back to like 30s and 40s.
Right.
At least until the Kennedys.
Yeah.
Right? I mean...
Now we're moving into conspiracy territory.
Right. I mean, it sounds like it. I mean, this whole thing is just tinfoil hat all the way, but do your research. It's there. I mean, like a Google search.
Right.
It's that easy.
After we really started to evolve into a country, man, like there's just so much sketchy shit that's happened.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean that goes for any side and anything. It's just our country in general. So the higher up, so corrupt and backwards sometimes.
Yeah.
Everyone, give a clap to your professor.
Yep. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
Some facts and opinions mixed together. Be nice to each other, and yeah.
That's sweet.
Hey,
There you go.
I love you, buddy.
Me too, dude.
Huh. All right.
Rock on. Paperwork